Some industries don't announce their end. The machinery keeps turning. Spreadsheets still balance, more or less. People show up to work, build things, and ship and sell them. Somewhere in all that motion and ordinary continuation, however, the foundation quietly rots away. You don't see it at first. Why would you? Everything looks the same as it did last year. However, if you know where to look, if you pay attention to the small decisions, the quiet retreats, and the things that aren't being built anymore, you'll start to notice something unsettling. The future that everyone was planning for isn't arriving. No one wants to say it out loud. We're in one of those moments now. It's an industry that most people take for granted. What are we actually watching happen here? The car business has always been brutal. There are thin margins, massive capital requirements, and relentless competition. You build a factory costing $2 billion, and it must run at near full capacity just to break even. You design a vehicle that takes 4 years to develop. By the time it hits the market, consumer tastes may have changed. On top of that, you have to negotiate with suppliers, manage thousands of workers, and navigate tariffs and regulations. If you're lucky, you'll make a 5% profit. It's always been this way. The companies that survived were the ones that became big, efficient, and brutal enough to withstand the grind. Volume was everything. Build more, sell more, spread your costs thinner, and outlast your competitors. That was the game. It worked for a long time, but something fundamental has shifted. Not suddenly, not obviously. However, it shifted deeply enough that the old playbook doesn't work anymore. The shift isn't really about electric cars. It's about what electrification reveals. It shows how fragile the whole system was from the beginning. It shows how fragile the economics are. It shows that many manufacturers were surviving not because they were strong, but because the environment hadn't tested them yet. Consider what has made car companies valuable over the past 50 years. Engineering expertise, manufacturing scale, a dealer network, brand recognition. They had the ability to design and build complex engines and transmissions that worked reliably for 200,000 miles. We have proprietary knowledge that took decades to accumulate. Now think about what an electric vehicle is. It's a battery you buy from someone else, an electric motor that's simpler than a combustion engine. Software matters more than horsepower. It's a skateboard platform that multiple brands can share. Suddenly, all that accumulated knowledge and decades of institutional expertise in engine manufacturing doesn't matter as much. That's not evolution, it's a revaluation. The qualities that made you competitive yesterday won't necessarily make you competitive tomorrow. The harder part is that retooling for this new reality is staggeringly expensive. You need new factories, new supply chains, you need new engineering talent. You need battery production facilities that cost billions. You have to invest enormous amounts of capital before you earn a single dollar back. You also need to do all this while continuing to run your old business because that's where your revenue comes from. So you're funding two unprofitable operations simultaneously, both of which consume capital you don't really have. This is the trap. You can't stay where you are. You can't afford to move. Standing still just means you bleed out slower. Manufacturers caught in the middle are discovering that the advantages they had in the old system have become anchors in the new one. They have massive factory networks optimized for combustion engines. They have supply relationships built around traditional components. Workforces are trained in obsolete skills. Dealer networks are designed to sell and service vehicles that require constant maintenance. All of that infrastructure and institutional knowledge is becoming a liability. I can't stop thinking about the difference between car companies and companies that sell other products. Most car companies sell transportation. They sell a way to get from one place to another. Functional, reliable, affordable. They compete based on specifications, price, and financing deals. Their customers are rational. They compare options. They want the best value. That's fine, except it means you have no pricing power. You can't charge more than your competitors without losing sales. so your margins stay razor thin. When costs increase, labor, materials, or compliance, you can't pass the costs along, you just absorb them. Absorbing these costs year after year leaves you with nothing to fall back on when something goes wrong. Then there are a few companies that sell products that are harder to quantify. Identity, status, a feeling. Their customers aren't rational. They're willing to pay more, sometimes much more, for something that isn't objectively superior. That irrational loyalty is the most valuable asset a company can have. It gives you room to breathe, room to make mistakes. It allows you to survive bad years without collapsing. Companies without that loyalty are the ones at risk, and there are a lot of them. This isn't new. Luxury brands have always operated in a different reality. However, it's becoming clear that in the world we're entering, you either have pricing power or you're in trouble. The middle ground, brands that aren't cheap enough to compete on price, nor desirable enough to command premium prices, is collapsing. Most of the industry lives in that middle ground. What's eerie about watching this unfold is how invisible it is to most people. A factory closes and it's reported as consolidation. A brand exits a market and it's framed as strategic realignment. Production numbers drop and it's explained as supply chain optimization. The language is always neutral, technical, and temporary sounding. However, if you track the pattern over months or years, you will see what is actually happening. Contraction. It's not fast enough to be called a crisis. It's not dramatic enough to make headlines. It's just a slow, steady reduction in capacity, employment, and ambition. And it's accelerating. You can see it in the partnerships that make no sense except as preludes to acquisition, in delayed product launches, in the profit warnings buried in earnings calls. You can see it in the way companies talk about the future, less confident, more cautious, and more focused on survival than growth. These aren't isolated events. They're symptoms of an industry under pressure that it wasn't built to handle. Models are canceled quietly. Entire vehicle segments are abandoned. Regional operations are wound down. Joint ventures are formed to share costs that were manageable alone. Every quarter brings another round of efficiency initiatives that are just layoffs by another name. And the stock markets barely react anymore. This is the new normal. This is what managing decline looks like when you can't admit that's what you're doing. I think people misunderstand industrial decline because it doesn't look like collapse. It looks like adjustment. It's reasonable and responsible decisions made by serious people trying to keep things running. We're cutting this model because demand is soft. We're closing that plant because it's inefficient. We're forming this partnership to share development costs. We're exiting this market to focus on our core regions. Each decision in isolation makes sense. Together, however, they tell a different story. They suggest that the company is retreating, simplifying, preparing for a smaller future. And they have to. The math just doesn't work anymore. There are too many manufacturers, too many brands, too many models. They're all competing for a market that isn't growing fast enough to sustain them. The global automotive market sells around 90 million vehicles per year. This number has remained relatively unchanged for over a decade. It might grow slightly in developing markets, but it's not doubling. It's not even growing by 10%. Meanwhile, manufacturers continue to expand their production capacity as if perpetual growth were still an assumption. They design factories to produce millions of units, all of which need to run at high utilization rates to be profitable. When demand doesn't materialize or sales slow even slightly, the whole system starts to buckle. The transition to electrification isn't making the pie any bigger, it's just changing who gets a slice. The problem is that now the slices cost more to make, but customers aren't willing to pay more for them, so margins compress further. Something has to give. Regulations are tightening. There are emission standards in Europe, fuel economy requirements in the United States, and electrification mandates in China. These aren't suggestions. They're legal requirements with real penalties. They force companies to invest in unprofitable technologies in volumes that exceed current demand and on timelines they can't control. Manufacturers are pouring billions into products that lose money to comply with rules that assume an appetite for these products that doesn't yet fully exist. It's industrial policy colliding with economic reality. The companies caught in the middle can't afford the collision. Consumer behavior isn't helping either. People are keeping their cars longer. The average age of vehicles on the road keeps climbing. The replacement cycle that manufacturers depend on is stretching out. When people do buy, they're more price sensitive than ever, which puts even more pressure on already thin margins. Governments will try to soften what's coming. They'll offer subsidies, tax credits, loan guarantees, not out of ideology, but necessity. Car companies employ millions. Entire towns depend on them. Letting a major manufacturer fail creates political disasters no one wants to deal with. But subsidies don't fix structural problems. They only delay them. They keep companies alive that probably shouldn't exist anymore, burning public money to postpone what's already inevitable. And that doesn't save jobs in the long run. It just spreads the pain out, makes it chronic instead of acute. Capital and labor remain trapped in declining businesses instead of moving toward viable ones. The outcome is unavoidable. Consolidation. Fewer brands, fewer manufacturers, an automotive industry that is smaller, more concentrated, and ultimately more fragile than it was a decade ago. This won't happen because of bad management or because the products suddenly became bad. It's happening because the economic model that supported dozens, sometimes hundreds of car companies was always fragile. It only worked in a world of endless growth, cheap capital, and consumers who replaced vehicles every few years. That world is fading. The companies that survive will be the ones that saw this early, the ones that built brands people actually care about, that didn't rely purely on volume and efficiency, that can charge a premium and make customers feel it's justified. Companies that treated their products as more than commodity transportation, investing in design, experience, and the intangible qualities that create loyalty. Everyone else is in survival mode. Some know it, some don't yet. Over the next decade, we'll see mergers that would have seemed unthinkable just a few years ago. Brands that once felt permanent will quietly disappear. Factories will close one by one, each explained as an isolated decision. Product lines will be abandoned, legacy nameplates retired, workforces gradually reduced. Most people won't connect the dots. They'll just notice, eventually, that there are fewer choices, fewer dealerships, fewer models. An industry that once felt vast and diverse, now condensed into something smaller and more controlled. There won't be a dramatic collapse, no single crisis moment, just a slow contraction stretched over years, normalized into acceptance. The language is already familiar. Right-sizing operations, focusing on profitable segments, capital discipline. These are euphemisms. What they really mean is simple. We're getting smaller and we're trying to do it without causing panic. There's something quietly melancholic about watching this. Not because the companies deserve sympathy, but because of what it represents. A century-old industrial model reaching the limits of its own logic. The belief in endless growth finally running out of room. What comes next will be smaller and more concentrated, controlled by fewer, stronger players. Some will call it progress, others will call it loss, but the transition is already happening, quietly, without drama, until one day, it's already over.